Today we're breaking down whether Dropfleet Commander should be concerned about the return of Firestorm Armada. If you go into your friendly local game store today and have a look on the shelves for a spaceship tabletop wargame, it's likely that the only one you'll be able to find is Dropfleet Commander, if any at all. And that is going to change in the next couple of years, with Warcradle announcing that Firestorm Armada is going to be coming out as a brand new product. This is Warcradle Studios, who have also revived other finished or dead, or however you want to phrase it, wargames, and turned them into quite interesting and viable products for the modern wargaming scene. And so it is very difficult to say they won't be doing the same with Firestorm Armada, given their track record. Today, I would like you to sit with me and have a cup of tea, maybe even at your local friendly game store, if you can get a nice tea there, and have a conversation about whether Firestorm Armada should be something that Dropfleet Commander is worried about. We're trying to look at both games, and we can't compare Dropfleet Commander with Firestorm Armada currently, because we don't know what Firestorm Armada is going to be like, rules or miniature-wise, as they are completely redesigning this game from the ground up, despite it having quite a storied history and being quite a beloved IP from the people that I've spoken to recently that played and still play Firestorm Armada today. So it would be quite interesting to hear. If you played Firestorm Armada, I will link in the description where I'm collecting some data for a future Firestorm Armada video. It would be brilliant if you could reach out to me there and answer some of the questions that I've posed to the community. If not, and you just want to go and have a look at see what people are saying, people are giving me some really quite amazing insight into the game and sharing with me a lot of resources that I didn't know existed, so that I can research this out of print game more thoroughly than I thought I'd be able to, which is excellent. This video today is in place of that video because I just needed more time to research it, because the community were just giving me so much interesting things that I just had to look at to be able to have a decent or give the game a decent look into without glossing over some things that people find really important. So anyway, today we're going to look at the two products or potential product in the case of Firestorm Armada, and try to see where it's going to be going for the spaceship tabletop wargame scene over the next few years. We're going to start with Dropfleet Commander because that's kind of where we stand right now. You know, if we're looking to go into a hobby shop and pick up a war game, it's going to be a spaceship war game. It's going to be Dropfleet Commander, because that's all we can really buy. There are other games. There are other ways of playing games, 3D printing, and you could even use your paper chits and all that kind of stuff. But we're trying to look at games with products, because the fact that this YouTube channel exists and has had the support it's had over the last week or two is testament to the fact that there is a market there for spaceship games and for science fiction naval wargaming, and it's just not really being tapped into at all by companies in the current day. So yeah, we're going to have a look at Dropfleet Commander. So Dropfleet Commander, I've done a video on this previously, which you can go and watch. Gives a little overview of the game. It's carved out quite an interesting niche within the hobby space. It's known for, first of all, obviously being in space, but it has a creator in Dave Lewis that really dives into the designs, the mechanisms and the mechanical designs of his spaceships and of his miniatures. He is looking at whether these models are actually workable. Will they actually function and work within the world he's created? And I find that really interesting. The game is centered around being in orbit of a planet or a celestial body, and you're dropping troops from your spaceships onto the planets. The reason why this is because planets are where people live. You know, whilst they might be living in orbital habitats or the like, within the law of the game, the planet is where people live. You know, it's the cradle of life essentially. If you look at something like Earth in the game, and you are dropping troops onto those planets. You're assaulting. It's a planetary assault war game essentially. It's quite a unique game. There are some parts of it which I find could kind of work out better. I don't particularly like having the tokens on the drop sites. However, that's kind of the only way you could really represent them, or represent your forces on the drop site. So yeah, in a 3rd edition, I'd love to see them shake that up a bit. I don't know what they would do or the direction they could go with it, but yeah, having the ground combat be kind of a little bit more magnified than it is now. I know it's you know, you're zoomed out and you're focusing on the spaceships, but yeah, having that ground combat be more than just a number of tokens on the place would be yeah, a little bit more fleshed out would be cool. It's not just spaceships shooting each other. This game is about positioning, timing within your turns, and the control of the board. It is a very interesting game. Firestorm Armada used to be a big name in the spaceship wargaming scene, originally created by Spartan Games, and I am going to be, as I mentioned, I am going to be making a video solely based on Firestorm Armada in the very near future. It has a very strong following even now. People who I've spoken to about this game are very passionate about Firestorm Armada, as I think they are about the Spartan version of Dystopian Wars. People are very loyal to the war games that they like. And it's brilliant to be able to have conversations with these people because they know so much about something I knew nothing about. I could have, and I probably would have played this game if I'd have known about it, you know, when it was still being supported by Spartan. So we want to speak about Warcradles Studios and just the fact that they are getting pretty good at reviving these old IPs now. We've had Wild West Exodus and Dystopian Wars, which have been sort of amalgamated together to be within the same universe lore-wise. And I do find that quite interesting. I know that there is a dedicated fan base that play at the local game club that I go to, and they play the Spartan version of Dystopian Wars. I'm very much interested in the Warcradle version of Dystopian Wars because I do find Warcradle to be quite an interesting company, and the products I've had from them have been fantastic. The plastic kits, the detail they were able to get into the 10mm figures for Armoured Clash is not something I've seen any company do before. And yeah, just their general products are fantastic in my opinion. So I will be really interested when they start to create, you know, miniature spaceships, which I'm really interested in. What they do with that. The art they showed off, I've shown some of it previously. I'll try and find some more and put over this so you can look at it while I'm talking. The art they've created is amazing. I especially love the sort of spiderweb or sickly trail type ship they had shown off previously. I think it's brilliant. Now, that's not to say that this is actually going to make it into the final game. This is, you know, this is concept art. You know, it's not something that we might necessarily think will actually end up in the game. However, it's just so exciting to me. It's so exciting to me to look at that and think I could have that as a model. So the art direction is completely different. I would say it's ungrounded in comparison to Dropfleet. In Dropfleet, you know, Dave Lewis is thinking, do these work? How do these work? And with Firestorm Armada, it's a little bit more like, well, it works because of the science these people have created. Let's not go into that. Let's just make cool models. And yeah, I do think that's very cool. Because at the tabletop, do I care if a thruster can generate enough power to push the mass of this vessel? No, not really. You know, some people might really, really like that. I do think it's cool, but yeah, very interested to see where Warcradle Studios will take Firestorm Armada, and we'll speak about that a little bit more now. Okay, so Warcradle Studios have already built communities around reviving dead, in air quotes, games, and it's something which is, it's becoming their niche, I guess. They're creating them into their own intellectual properties. They own them outright anyway. It's just essentially the name that they're putting on these games, and I do find that really quite fascinating. Just as a product, we don't often, as wargamers, look at our wargames as products. They're our toys. They're ours. We have an ownership over the models, and we spend time and energy putting them on the table, from building, painting them up, the hobby part of it, learning the rule set, which sometimes can be quite challenging, depending on which game it is, and how much access you have to finding out information from other people. It's great when you've got a gaming group that are all learning together, because someone can see something that you don't. Many heads are better than one and all that. So just looking at Firestorm Armada, what are we looking at? From the point of view of, this is going to be a new product, so it's going to have a refreshed rule set. We know that these rules are going to be different to the ones that they previewed as a beta just after they bought it from Spartan Games. And we know this because they've brought in a new designer and said so. They've said this is a from the ground up rewrite of the rules, which I think is good. They need to take ownership and control of this IP in the same way they have with Dystopian Wars, because I think that's just the way to go. This is a modern company making modern games, modern mechanics for games. And it just has to be this way, unfortunately. For everyone who was interested in Spartan Games' version of Firestorm Armada, that game is complete in a sense. You can still use your older miniatures and play that game, obviously. There's still people that do so. There's a lot of people that I've spoken to researching Firestorm Armada that aren't happy that Warcradle have taken over their game, and that is kind of fine. They can not be happy about that. It's a perfectly valid stance, and they can continue to still play in the older game. It's much like with all war games, though. You do have people that stay in that particular edition. Some people will, for example, still be playing 3rd edition Warhammer, or that sort of thing. The modern miniatures, the older miniatures that Spartan Games created, they look amazing. They do look brilliant, even by today's standards. I do think they look really nice. If they weren't so expensive, myself and Dan would have picked up some of these models. It's just a bit prohibitive from us, from this perspective of just to play a war game that a few times, that might get refreshed, and then we'll repurchase into that one again as well. Unfortunately, I would really love to be able to play this game if I could buy a couple of fleets for a reasonable price. Considering it's over, but because it's over, they are seen as rare. These things aren't being created anymore. So the modern miniatures, I touched a little bit on the artwork that Warcradle had released. It looks fantastic. The products that they have, especially for Dystopian Wars and Armoured Clash, because they're the two games that I really do like from them. You can see the difference in Armoured Clash with the Crown, for example. The stuff that Spartan had with the Crown, miniature-wise, for my personal taste, I think it doesn't really hit me in the same way as having St. Paul's Cathedral rolling around on wheels, which is effectively what they have for Armoured Clash via Warcradle. It's a nice product. It's easy to get to grips with. They're on these plastic sprues. It's very nice. There's no, or less, resin. There's no metals. I think they are stopping. They said Warcradle are not making anything else in resin for Armoured Clash, which is interesting. So perhaps we will see a fully plastic release for Firestorm Armada with zero resin, which would be quite interesting. Firestorm Armada also had an incredibly strong faction identity. I don't want to say their names in case I absolutely butcher them, but from the conversations I've been having with people, they have particular races that they absolutely love within Firestorm Armada. We know that the lore for the game is also being changed. I'm assuming they're going to keep the same names for the races because that would make sense. We'll wait to see what they actually do with that. Perhaps the fact that there's such a strong faction identity and such a beloved product from Spartan Games might see some of the older Firestorm players bounce off the newer Warcradle version. That's kind of to be expected with new editions of things. But the main thing I think will be a bonus to Firestorm Armada is the fact that Warcradle Studios support their games constantly with releases. Now, this is what you have to do as a modern wargame company because Games Workshop does it, essentially. Every month, every couple of weeks, or every week really, you can buy something from Games Workshop that's a miniature. It could be anything. They'll have release shows and show off, this and that and whatever, and the next day they'll then, show off something else. They just have constant releases coming out. There was a meme about the new Chaos Marauders that came out. It was like they had a release show, and then all of a sudden, like the Monday after, this brand new Chaos Marauder box, which everyone was kind of wanting, was just nonchalantly thrown out there. They lead the pack when it comes to pumping out releases and bringing in the money. Every time they release something, it's being purchased. The same with these companies. I'm currently waiting on a pre-order for the Dystopian Wars Crown support ships. For my Crown Force, we're doing a Dystopian Wars slow grow at the game club starting in June. So we're trying to get a small fleet of them painted up. The fact that Dystopian Wars and Armoured Clash constantly have releases, not every month, I think it's every couple of months, something will come out for one of the factions. And these games do need to have that miniature support, because as soon as you see something start to disappear from the social media sort of presence these companies have, and also on YouTube here, people are always reviewing the products all the while. As soon as they start to disappear, people are kind of like, well, if you're not going to give me something I can buy this month for my faction, then I'll buy something else. And that's money that's left on the table, essentially, by these companies. So if Warcradle are to use the same sort of product release schedule that they've done for Dystopian Wars and Armoured Clash, for Firestorm Armada, we can expect to see, a starter set, a couple of factions come out, and then over the months, just like they did with Armoured Clash and just like they are doing now with the 4th edition of Dystopian Wars, releasing new products slowly over the months to take us up to, perhaps a year's time away for all the factions to be released. It matters quite a lot to me that a company will continue to release things that look cool, because the people that I play around, I might have my faction that I just think, oh, these look brilliant, I'm going to purchase these, and that's my faction. However, with games like with Armoured Clash, I wanted to play as the Crown. I picked them up, and the only other faction out for a while was the Empire, and I had to wait for the other factions to come out. As soon as they were out, we were all playing. People had picked up what they wanted to pick up, and we started playing a few games. But before then, it needed to have that sort of snowball of hype building up the game, and having these constant releases, even if they are split by a couple of months, it does start to build that snowball. And it's important to me to have that, because if you're not going to snowball that support for your game, you're just going to bring something out and then that's it for 6 months to 8 months, and no one hears anything from you. The game will kind of fade away a little bit, especially with the, more, now sort of feeling of modern social media. So the key differences then between these two games. We're going to look with a best guess scenario for Firestorm Armada. Dropfleet Commander and Firestorm Armada are not identical games by any means. They are going to cross over in some ways, and they are going to compete within the space. It will essentially be the only two plastic hip sprue plastic spaceship war games that are going to be within this niche that we play. So Dropfleet Commander, obviously we've got to focus on planetary objectives, tactical gameplay. It feels like it has kind of a smaller scale, and it's quite precise in how you're playing the game. You know, you're getting your stuff to do particular things, and you know, you're coming in with a plan. Firestorm Armada, a likely direction. So I feel like we might end up in a case of dystopian wars in space, potentially. So you're going to have things like the manoeuvring of your vessels, of your spaceships being quite important. You know, not being able to just stay still. I mean, it's quite an interesting and fun mechanic if you're being propelled forward and there's no resistance in space to stop you. You're going to keep going forward, so you know, that's quite interesting. Perhaps we might see some larger fleet engagements, because if we're taking Firestorm Armada as being a you know, deep space battle game, there isn't anything else that's in a game store currently that gives this sort of thing. So we potentially could see some larger fleet engagements and lead to some more cinematic sort of battles. You know, there's plenty of books out there that have the spaceship sort of fantasy. I'm quite interested to see where they go with it. The main key thing that I want to try and highlight is that Dropfleet Commander only recently, in my opinion, has Dropfleet Commander become the level of product that it needed to become to try to become the largest in this space. And what I mean by that is there is a much slower release cadence from TC Combat compared to other war games. Now, we're talking about only spaceship war games here, but when we think about war games as a whole, every single one of them is a competitor to another. You know, you can see in the background here, there's some Dropfleet boxes, there's a Star Wars Legion box, there's a Warhammer box there. You know, there's all sorts of bits in the background. Well, if you're not selling me Dropfleet Commander stuff, and I've bought all the other bits that I want to buy for your game, there's nothing new for me to buy. Well, I'll buy something else. And I do think that they have been pretty slow. Recently, the last few months, they've been putting out a fair amount of new stuff. And that's brilliant. I play PHR. I'm very excited to pick up the new battle cruiser and pocket battleship thing that's just been announced for pre-order. Excited to receive that. Apart from that, for me as a PHR player, the only thing I've been able to purchase is this new starter box here, which is the new battleship and new lightship sprues. I already had a battleship before I bought that, and I already had lightship sprues before I bought that. So then it's not new products in there, apart from the assets, which are just some 3D printed small cost things. I bought this box just because, you know, I wanted to have it. It's a nice thing to have. Bulks me out, makes me more ships, you know, more different various ship types that I can take. It's not a new product. It's a repackaging of products they've already brought out, just bundled together. And so I do think it's quite interesting they haven't really expanded, until now, haven't really expanded too much to ship classes or ship types for their game, despite it being about 2 years old at this point. So yeah, that's kind of something which is sort of a weak point for Dropfleet Commander there. It has a learning curve, Dropfleet Commander, when you are playing this game. There's no hand-holding. I said in a previous video, if you're making a list for Dropfleet Commander, you need something that's going to drop your troops. It doesn't ever say to you that that's compulsory. It never says to you that you need that in the game. And so you very much, as a new player, if you're jumping in at the deep end, you could turn up for a game night without any way of winning the game. Because you won't be able to drop any troops onto any. I mean, I guess you could blow them up. That is a thing in the game, but you know, it does hamper your ability, and so it'll be quite a steep learning curve. You might, if you're a less experienced wargamer, you might come away from that and think, well, bloody hell, I couldn't win, so what's the point? And you know, that kind of, it's a bit of a miss, I think, from the fact of I don't need you to hold my hand through all of list writing, but I do need you to have something in the book that for new people that says, please take something that drops ships in Dropfleet Commander. Yeah, it's a bit of a miss. So Warcradle Studios got some notes here just about that potentially their assets when we're coming into this. So they do have, I feel like they're a bigger company. They might not be, I don't know. I feel like they are. I feel like Warcradle are a bigger company. If you buy a Warcradle product and you open that box, you take the card sleeve off the top and it has that black, nice matte black box with the silver Warcradle logo in the center, and you lift it up, it feels like you're buying a premium product, and it's still priced the same as other wargaming products in the space. So that's a big plus for Warcradle. I mean, you've already made the purchase, but when you've made that purchase, you hold it in your hand and you think, oh man, this is worth something. It has that sort of thing. Warcradle also do regular updates for their games. I'm not saying that Dropfleet Commander don't make, or TT Combat don't do regular updates for Dropfleet Commander. However, they are more sparse. In a way, that's good. In a way, that is a good thing. Twice a year is fine. I think that's perfect, and I do think that's what Warcradle do as well. I do think that I much prefer to have a slower release and slower cadence of updates for rules or things for changes. If they could have just sorted out the Bioficer torpedoes a little bit faster, that would have been cool, I wouldn't have been complaining about that at all. But yes, we are where we are with that now, so that's fine. Something I do want to mention as well, though, is sitting down to play a Warcradle game with new players, because I've done several demo games for Armoured Clash, and I'm about to do loads of demo games for Dystopian Wars, and I've done demo games with me and Dan. We sort of demoed ourselves with Dropfleet Commander. Warcradle games are so much bloody easier to teach someone. They are so much easier to teach someone than quite a lot of other war games, and that's a massive plus, because if you're sitting down with someone at the table, here's your deck of cards, here's your dice, here's a couple of models, let's just play the game, and it flows so nicely. It's so easy to demo. Whether the depth keeps me there for as long as something like Dropfleet Commander, I don't really know. I've only been playing Warcradle games for 2-3 years, something like that. Whereas with Dropfleet Commander, I've been supporting it, or purchased it right at its inception in the Kickstarter. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't see why I wouldn't still be here in 5 to 10 years time playing their games. Yeah. All right, so what is this going to do for the wargaming scene then, having Firestorm Armada be released? So I think it's going to have quite a big impact on the visibility of the space. Warcradle are pretty popular, as you can see with things like Dystopian Wars. It's a very popular game, especially here in the UK, and I think so in America too, from what I see online. So I think having these two games in the same space is going to generate a better condition for both, for us as consumers, and for both of the games, because TT Combat currently with Dropfleet Commander, once they end this cycle of releases, they've got 3 more factions to do for battle cruisers and hero ships. And assets, some little assets they're bringing out every so often for like mines and stuff like that. Once that's done, they don't have, as far as I'm aware, and as far as I can see from a customer looking at their product, someone who's invested in their game, I can't see what else they release for a product. They need to create something new for the game. Be that a new faction, be that new classes of ships, be that remaking some of the older white plastics. There's still PHR, Shaltari, and I want to say the Resistance in the older white plastic, which you can see here just sitting on my shelf. Those are white plastic sprues sitting up there, unbuilt and unmade cruiser sprues. So that plastic is from the Hawk Wargames days, and it's stuff which is from that original Kickstarter, and these white plastic sprues were from the box above, so they're still using that older stuff for some of the ships, which is absolutely fine, completely serviceable. Some of the sprue gates are a bit annoying on the PHR ships because they go across the flats, the nice rounded surfaces, but whatever, it's fine. Yeah, so I think both companies are going to be coming out the gate, Firestorm's going to come out the gate pretty strong because it's a new product. And Warcradle have a pedigree of being able to release these products and support them well now. Dystopian Wars, Armored Clash, there's rumblings that they're going to have a 28mm skirmish game, the Wild West Exodus reboot at some point, I think maybe this year. So that would be interesting. I'm not going to be playing that myself, but I would be interested to see what they do with that product, just for the sake of, you know, thinking about Firestorm Armada in the future. TT Combat are going to have to do something. I know they are, this year at Gen Con, Dave Lewis has said they are redoing Drop Zone Commander, which is their ground combat game. If they switch away from Dropfleet Commander entirely and only focus on Drop Zone Commander, which I kind of have a feeling they might do, at the time when Firestorm Armada is going to be coming out, I feel that's going to be pretty bad for them in the space. They're going to have a genuine competitor for the first time ever in the lifespan of Dropfleet Commander, especially post-COVID. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm not saying there isn't other tabletop war games out there that are already competitors to them. People have mentioned in the comments of my previous videos, you know, things like Billion Suns and Grand Fleet Admiral. Grand Fleet Admiral looks really interesting to me. It's going to be something that I'm definitely going to be having a look at and picking up. 3D printed game looks quite interesting, but generally Firestorm Armada coming out is going to bring more attention to spaceship tabletop games. It's something that I'm excited for, having a YouTube channel that focuses on spaceship tabletop war games, and I think both systems are going to benefit from each other in the long run, because people who are playing Firestorm Armada or want to play Firestorm Armada, they're going to go and pick it up. People who already play Dropfleet Commander, they're already kind of interested in spaceship war games, and it's a new product. This is where the problem comes that I'm talking about for Dropfleet Commander and TT Combat. If they are not going to have, I realise I'm pointing at my Dropfleet ships down here. If they don't bring out some new products to do with Dropfleet Commander when Firestorm Armada comes out, I do have a feeling that, you know, all of my Dropfleet Commander money is just going to be spent on Firestorm Armada. Even though I'm already invested in this system, I will buy this one because you haven't given me anything here to buy. I'm going to buy this one. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think it's going to be a really interesting and fun time for everyone who's interested in this sort of stuff. I will be pre-ordering Firestorm Armada as soon as it comes out. We're still a way away. We're still maybe a year or maybe more away from it coming out. We're talking about 2027 release. I would imagine they would release something like that around UK Games Expo sort of time, maybe before. I'm not entirely sure, but as soon as anything comes out for Firestorm Armada from Warcradle, I'm going to be covering it because I want to play it. I want to see what it's like. Thank you very much for watching this far into the video. I am going to be covering a short history of Firestorm Armada in one of my next videos. And if you've got this far into the video, I'm going to let you know that I have been interviewing Neil Fawcett, I think is how to say his second name, Neil Fawcett, the guy who originally incepted both Dystopian Wars, Firestorm Armada, Uncharted Seas. He owned Spartan Games. And I'm extremely excited to be able to interview him, just to get his opinions on, you know, his old games. He seems like quite an open and nice gentleman. So yeah, if you've got this far into the video, that's your little nugget. Be quite excited to do that. Watch out for a little history of Firestorm Armada coming out as my next video. I think it's important to document that here, especially with the new version coming out. I don't want the history to be forgotten, really, of these war games. You know, with everything going more and more digital, these are analog products that we put our attention and effort into, and you know, I want to be able to record this history as some kind of marker, you know, in time that perhaps people can find in the future and enjoy learning about these old war games. So yes, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video to its end. It's actually a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, but yeah, I'd like to ramble on about stuff. Please talk with me about what you think about the new game coming out from Warcradles Studios. Do you think it's going to affect Dropfleet Commander? Do you think it'll affect anything at all? Do you not want this product to come out? You're not bothered about Firestorm Armada from Warcradle? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you would give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, that would help me out immensely. We surpassed 50 subscribers in 2 weeks. We're over 1,000 views on the channel now, just in 2 weeks' time. It's been quite interesting for me to watch. I didn't think this was going to get as much traction as soon. So thank you very much to everyone. And yeah, long may it continue. Thank you. Have a nice day and goodbye.